Ride along on the Okanogan open-top Odyssey with a band of merry Miata mischief makers from Club Miata Northwest. Over the course of 2.5 days we covered some 800 miles of wonderful and scenic backroads. Our adventure started Friday afternoon as we gathered in Monroe after work. With the cars fueled up and comms set to Channel 5, we left western Washington behind, crossing the Cascades on Highway 2 over Stevens Pass. From Lake Wenatchee we scrambled up a delightfully twisty hill climb and then drove a scenic valley into Leavenworth. We arrived in the Bavarian-themed town of Leavenworth right at dinner time as the golden rays of early evening bathed the town in a warm glow. Parking was tight with peak tourist season in full swing, but we each found spots and then gathered at King Ludwig's for a shared meal. After dinner, dessert was a sunset drive through the apple orchards of the Wenatchee River Valley. We spent the next hour exploring the orchard roads and grassy canyons on our way to our lodging in Wenatchee. The entire journey from Leavenworth to Wenatchee turned into an impromptu adventure. I had assumed our official drive would conclude in Leavenworth, with everyone heading to their own hotels for the night. But the group was game to explore some new roads, so we set off together and were thrilled we did. The valleys around Kashmir were especially breathtaking as we drove, with the sunset casting a magical glow over the mountains. A perfect finale to our first day. Day 2 kicked off with an early morning drive-as briefing at Lincoln Park in Wenatchee. From there, we headed into the orchard-covered hills just outside town. It was a fantastic way to start the day, with the road weaving through trees on the upper slopes, offering stunning views over the apple trees and the Columbia River in the distance. With the orchards behind us, we ventured eastward, crossing the mighty Columbia River and beginning our ascent onto the plateau. The landscape transformed into a sea of golden wheat fields, rippling across the rolling hills. The road stretched ever upward, in a steady continuous climb that felt like it went on forever. Our path led us north, cresting the short, stout dome of Badger Mountain. Unlike the frenetic twists of the orchard roads, this route swayed with a delightful rhythm. As we descended Badger Mountain, we bypassed Waterville, weaving through a mosaic of farmlands. The golden fields parted suddenly as the road dipped into Pine Canyon, carving through the plateau back toward the Columbia River. Sunlit, jagged canyon walls flanked our winding descent, their rugged faces glowing warmly. The gorge soon widened, revealing the river's gleaming expanse. We turned north, settling into a stretch of easy highway driving as we rolled toward Tonasket for well-deserved lunch. Following the Okanogan River north, we rolled into Tonasket around 1 p.m. Our first stop was to refuel the cars at the junction, a bustling hub where we navigated a chaotic swarm of large trucks and SUVs. With tanks topped off, we settled in for a hearty lunch at the Iron Grill just down the road. Afterwards, we crossed the Okanogan to the east of town and pressed on. The route drove along some green farm fields before climbing up through a cut and into a grassy valley heading toward Loomis. The small hamlet of Loomis slipped by quickly, and soon we were driving along the quiet shores of Palmer Lake. One of the larger lakes in the area, it sat nestled against the dry, rolling foothills. Along the road, trucks and boat trailers were parked, with people out enjoying an afternoon of boating and fishing on the calm water. We left Palmer Lake behind, easing out of the valley to the north above the gentle flow of Palmer Creek as it merged with the winding Similkeen River. Above, scattered clouds drifted across the sky, casting a patchwork of shadows and soft sunlight over the rolling hills. At Nighthawk, a faded mining town now nearly a ghost town with just a handful of residents clinging to its quiet, we crossed the Similkeen River, the old ruby mine standing as a silent relic nearby. Toward the eastern end of the valley, the landscape grew wilder, with jagged, rocky hillsides crowding tightly around the river, creating a rugged, narrow canyon. The sweeping curves of the road behind us gave way to an exhilarating series of tight twisting turns that carved through the dramatic terrain. We pulled over for a photo op just past the sharp crook of Shanker's Bend. The clouds parted, letting the sun through to bathe the cars and canyon in a warm afternoon light. Similkeen River Canyon opened up as we reached Oroville, just a short distance downstream from our photo stop. There, we paused along the shores of Osoyoos Lake at the Memorial Park, taking a moment to stretch our legs and rest before continuing our journey eastward. Leaving Oroville, the road climbed through a rugged cut along Tonasket Creek and snaked its way into the hills. As we ascended, the landscape softened, revealing gentle grassy fields nestled among rolling hills and scattered trees. Eventually, we emerged into a wide undulating expanse of hilly terrain that felt almost surreal. The group couldn't help but remark that it was as if we'd driven straight into a Miata commercial, the scenery unfolding like a perfectly scripted backdrop. The Okanogan's high plains cast a spell over us as we cruised around Muskrat Lake. Words could hardly capture the magic, but it stemmed from the vast openness, smooth rolling hills and endless blue skies stretching above. The scene echoed the Paloussa's beauty, yet felt wilder. It even evoked memories of the iconic Windows 95 desktop with its surreal green hills. On the far side of the shallow lake, Hungry Hollow Road tumbled gently out of the meadows, spilling down the hills in a delightful descent. In contrast to the open high plains, our route then plunged through a forested mountain pass. Rocky cliffs jutted above the evergreens and bright leafy aspens lined the road. Emerging from the shadowed ravine, we traced the edges of slender mountain lakes with their emerald green waters blending in the late afternoon sunlight. The few people out enjoying the sun and secluded waters waved to us as we sped past. After a thrilling day navigating winding roads and dodging northwest mountain cows, we crossed the mighty Columbia and rolled into Colville. After settling into our lodgings, we reconvened for a hearty prime rib dinner at the Acorn Saloon and feeding station on the main drag. A perfect, savory close to another day's adventure. As the morning sun greeted our spirited band of Miata misfits, we revved our engines and embarked on the journey home, the crisp morning drive igniting our senses. Bidding farewell to Colville, we ventured east, climbing into the lush, forested hills skirting White Mud Lake. Our path soon veered south, leading us off the highway onto the sweeping high plains, where open grasslands unfolded above the tranquil little Ponderay River Valley. The descent back down into the Colville River Valley was pure joy. A wonderfully smooth ribbon of asphalt gracefully threaded downhill, skirting the edge of sprawling prairies and weaving playfully through clusters of pine trees that cloaked the steeper slopes. Winding across the Colville River Valley floor, we began our ascent into the foothills bridging the Colville and Columbia rivers, where dense tree cover enveloped us. There, we rendezvoused with our friend and fellow club member, Alex, who was enjoying a family getaway nearby. Though he couldn't join our full journey, sharing the road with him for part of the morning was a treat. Heating his heads up about roaming wild turkeys, we pressed on toward the mighty Columbia River. All too soon we were bidding farewell to Alex over the radios as we crossed the Columbia River once more, heading toward Sherman Pass. Luck was on our side this Sunday morning, with scarcely a car in sight. The few vehicles we encountered courteously pulled aside, granting us nearly the entire highway to ourselves as we cruised over the pass. It wasn't until we were just minutes from Republic that we began to meet more traffic. Nestled among the rugged hills and mountains of the Okanogan region, Republic is a charming old mining town with a rich history. Just beyond its borders lie several active and abandoned mining claims, making the area a haven for rockhounds and treasure seekers. As we left Republic and journeyed toward Tonasket, the landscape transformed from dense fir and pine forests to the arid open hills and valleys of the Okanogan River Valley, where vibrant greens gave way to a palette of sandy tans and yellows. The miles flew by, revealing this striking shift. Along the way, scenic Highway 20 treated us to winding pavement that snaked through canyons and hugged rugged rocky walls. Back in the Okanogan Valley, we headed south of Tonasket along Highway 97 for a spell before taking a cutoff through a wash and up onto Pogue Flats east of Omak. The landscape was flat and dry, punctuated by irrigated crops and framed by stark hills at the edge of the flats. We'd zigzag across the land with names such as Spring Coulee, Salmon Creek, and Danker. Before reaching Tareel Flats, we would rejoin Highway 20 to make the crossing over the mountains toward Twist. By early afternoon, we arrived in Winthrop for a late lunch at the Fainting Goat restaurant. After the meal, we made our way through the western-themed town with its boardwalk and flat front shops. It was a bit melancholy on the drive home, but in a good way as we thought back over the weekend's adventure. One of us stayed behind with a planned few days vacation in Winthrop. The rest of us headed out of town and drove west through the beautiful Meadow Valley under brilliant blue skies. Over the course of the last 2.5 days, our Club Miata Northwest contingent covered almost 800 miles on a drive that would cross the Cascades, explore the stunning and sublime Okanogan high country, visit small remote old mining towns, and drive along numerous lakes, rivers, and creeks big and small. Our final leg of the journey took us over Washington Pass as we crossed the Cascade Mountains one last time with a last stop at the Diablo Lake overlook. What a fantastic summer weekend! Thanks to all who joined in on this truly epic Okanogan open-top odyssey.